Nick, please, I can explain.
Did you sleep with him? Well, how could you do that the night before our wedding?
That's not what it looks like. Please, I didn't mean to.
Well, that's Rich. Who is he? Who is he?
I don't know.
That's disgusting.
No, Nick, please, wait. Nick, please.
It's over between us.
It was an accident. I'm telling the truth.
The truth? The truth is that I loved you. I wanted to spend the rest of my life with you. I wanted to make you happy. Now, the truth is that the sight of you makes me sick.
When Natalie cautiously returned to her room, her mystery man was gone. She felt terrible for cheating on her fiancé the night before her wedding. Nick was right to hate her. How could she lose her virginity to a complete stranger?
Oh my God.
Why would you do that to Nick?
Dad, that's what I'm trying to explain to you. I didn't. None of this makes any sense. Like, I feel like there was something in my drink or
Wait, something in your drink?
Yeah.
If that's true, I'm gonna find those.
Darling, the Luxor is a classy establishment. I highly doubt the type of scumbag that puts something in a drink would hang around in a place like that. This is much more likely that Natalie is just trying to blame others for her own mistake.
That's not fair or true.
Natalie?
Nick.
Don't. I don't want to hear it. I came to pick up a few things, but I'll just come back. And don't follow me.
Oh, this is just heartbreaking.
I didn't do anything.
I know. I believe you.
As Natalie embraced her stepsister, a memory slowly came into focus. The night before, she'd gone to the hotel bar for a nightcap, when all of a sudden she felt lightheaded and woozy. The last thing she remembered before everything went blank was a face she recognized.
Wait. Were you there last night?
Don't be ridiculous.
No, I remember now.
You must have been really wasted.
You little liar.
God, you're just like your mother.
Take that as a compliment.
Natalie, what's going on? I just got off the phone with Nick's father. They are absolutely heartbroken over this. I can't understand how you could do something like this.
Dad, yeah. You said that already.
Before the day was over, Natalie was packed off and sent out of the country. In one night, she had lost everything. One question remained. If Nick wasn't in her bed that night, then who was? The answer to her question would come, but not for a very long time.
While that horrible day 5 years earlier single-handedly ruined her life, it also gave her the biggest source of joy.
Gotcha, Mommy. Now you're dead.
Liam, that is not very nice.
I'll protect you.
All right, Mr. Tough Guy, grab me that teddy bear. Hello?
Natalie?
Dad?
Natalie. It's, great to hear your voice. Listen, we have a family event coming up, and we'd love to have you.
Event?
It's been a long time since we've seen you.
Yeah, well, whose fault is that?
Your grandma, she's not doing great. She wants to see you.
Mommy, who is that?
Natalie!
Hi, Granny.
And you must be Liam.
Hi, I missed you.
Oh, I missed you too. Oh, you poor thing. I wish you had come home sooner.
You know, I was always on your side. And that awful Cheryl. Oh, I'm sure that she's at the bottom of all this. And the fact that she's marrying him, I don't think I understand.
Well, well, well. Look who's come back. And just in time.
Just in time for what? My wedding week, of course.
Wow. Who's the unlucky fiance? Nick? What are you doing here?
Marrying me, silly.
What? You home wrecker.
Please. You wrecked your own.
Natalie, no. I'll come give your father a hug.
How could you? How could you let her marry Nick?
Nick was in a really bad place when all this went down. Cheryl was there for him. And it just sort of happened.
You really think that all of this was just a coincidence?
Mommy, look at all these big rocks I found.
Mommy? Is that you?
Oh, so you did find yourself a man then?
No, just me. I don't know my dad.
Why am I not surprised?
Come on, Liam. Let's just go upstairs.
Wait. I want to meet Liam.
Well, you should have thought about that before you gave my life to some knockoff version of me. Let's go. Just leave me alone.
Natalie.
What do you want? You already dug the knife deeper than before.
I'm the one that dug. You're the one that cheated on me.
I told you what happened and you didn't believe me. Do you really think I would have screwed up what we had, Nick? I loved you.
But I saw you in the shower.
I thought it was you. I went to my hotel room, someone crawled into bed with me. I assumed it was you.
God, I still want you.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit too late for that now, don't you?
Why would you even let a random guy go into your hotel room?
I don't know. Why don't you ask your fiance?
What do you mean?
Just forget it. You two deserve each other.
No one wears white but the bride to the rehearsal luncheon.
Well, you should have thought about that before you decided to marry my fiance.
Mommy, look, dessert.
Yeah, baby, have whatever you want.
Aw, gotta stock up on the free food now, huh, sis?
You stole all of this from me. None of this is yours.
You can't steal what never belonged to someone. You know, maybe if you toned down on the femme raging, you'd find yourself a man.
I don't want another man. Not if they're anything like Nick.
Classy.
Leave my mommy alone.
Ow! You little...
You're to blame for all of this.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I'd say you sleeping with another man the night before your wedding is to blame.
As her father and son looked on in horror, Natalie raged against Cheryl as she tried to take justice into her own hands, once and for all.
I dare you to say that one more time.
You mean you're...
What did you just say? You drugged me.
What? No, I mean,
Tell me what happened that night.
Natalie, no!
I'm calling the cops. Tell me or I'll do it.
I trust you and the other guy too, okay? And I told him I'd take him back to his hotel room, but I took him to yours instead.
I knew it.
Natalie, put the knife down!
Why should I? She took everything from me. You, my father, my life. I should have done this a long time ago.
Mom, do something!
Freeze! Put the knife down! You don't want to do this.
Mommy!
Captain Brian, wait.
Mr. Claire, what are you doing here?
Just, I'm here to get my wife. She's had a little too much to drink is all. I'll take her home.
Of course, sir. Yeah. All right, break it up, folks. There's nothing to see here.
Captain, arrest her! She tried to murder me!
You need to apologize to her and her son. Now.
What?
Now.
Fine. I'm sorry.
Thank you for helping us back there.
Of course. Let me, drive you home.
You look familiar. Where have I seen you before?
I don't know. Magazino, maybe?
Humble.
Just keeping it real. Come on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So who are you anyway?
Bryce Claire. And you're Natalie.
How'd you know that?
I know a lot of things. But honestly, what you did in the restaurant was reckless.
She deserved it. I mean, you have no idea what I've been through.
Natalie, I know more than you realize. You could have ruined your son's life.
Stop the car, I'm getting out.
What?
I said stop the car.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure. Thank you.
Natalie. It's me.
Nick, what are you doing
I just
here?
want to talk.
Well, I don't, so.
I hate you. You're always making my mommy upset.
It's okay, baby. Nick, just go, Nick.
I feel horrible. I feel horrible that Cheryl ruined everything for us.
You ruined this for us by not believing me.
Oh, how is it all my fault? You know I care about you.
Since when? Where were you all of those years that I was going through hell? Where were you this morning when your fiance was attacking me?
Okay, Cheryl may have drugged you, but it doesn't give you an excuse to sleep with a stranger.
Get off of me! Get off!
Don't touch my mommy!
You. This is your fault. Everything that happened is your fault.
You're scaring me.
Good. Stop. You again.
I think you should go.
Or what?
Come find out.
What will happen between Bryce and Nick? Will Natalie make Cheryl pay for what she did? Will she take Nick back? And who is the mystery man, Bryce?
Hi, I'm Natalie. Want to know my story? Then download the Pocket FM app and listen to the exciting episodes of The Return now.
Who is he? Who is he?
I don't know.
Now the truth is at the sight of you makes me sick.
Why would you do that to Nick?
Dad, that's what I'm trying to explain to you. I didn't. None of this makes any sense. Like, I feel like there was something in my drink or something.
Wait, something in your drink?
Before the day was over, Natalie was packed off and sent out of the country.
You know, maybe if you toned down on the femme raging, you'd find yourself a man.
Leave my mommy alone!
Ow! You little...
Claire, what are you doing here?
Just, I'm, here to get my wife. She's had a little too much to drink is all. I'll take her home.
Thank you for helping us back there.
Of course. Let me, drive you home.
After the heated exchange, Natalie did not have any contact with her family for almost a week. Then, in the blink of an eye, the day of the engagement party arrived. Tom stood at the door of the party hall to greet the guests. Seeing that it was nearly time, he called Nick over to talk to him. Cheryl and her mother have suffered a lot in the past. He sighed and said earnestly, now that you two are engaged, you mustn't disappoint me. If you treat her badly, I won't let you off easily. Nick nodded his head seriously. Don't worry, I'll take good care of her and never upset her, not in the slightest. While the two of them were talking, Cheryl finished dressing and walked leisurely down the stairs. Her appearance caused quite a stir. All the guests nodded their heads in praise of her beauty. Cheryl was overjoyed, and she walked up to Nick and hooked her arm through his. Tom watched the two of them and sighed with emotion. I'm handing my precious daughter over to you. You must look after her for me. Nick stretched out his hand and took hold of Cheryl's. I will live up to your expectations. Just then, someone raised their voice. Don't you have another daughter, Tom? How come I haven't seen her for a while? If I remember correctly, this man was her fiance once, right? The words were like a bomb. The entire hall erupted into commotion. He was looking around the hall in annoyance when he saw Natalie walk in with Liam. Tom's expression turned cold. He walked up to Natalie and lowered his voice, trying his best to control his voice. What's wrong with you? Didn't I say that you couldn't bring the child? He pointed towards the door, his expression furious, and he didn't hold back his emotions. Get someone to take him away or I'll kick him out. Tom's dismissive attitude to Liam was like a needle that pierced Natalie's heart. Why did you make me travel all the way here? You knew it would make you unhappy. Don't worry, I'll leave with him right now. Seeing that she was about to leave, Cheryl became anxious. Natalie, don't leave. Daddy was just being impulsive. With one hand holding on to Tom and the other holding her fiancé, she tilted her head and smiled. Don't be angry. Today is my engagement party. I really want your blessing. Natalie saw all this and ignored her. She turned to look at her father, who was still upset. What? Do you want me to stay? Go and stand to the side. Don't wander around in front of us. She wasn't in the mood to argue with him, so she took Liam's hand and found a corner to sit down in. Mommy, are you okay? Without waiting for her to speak, he ran to a waiter and asked for a cup of water in a childish voice. He agreed and returned with a cup of water. After drinking half of it, Natalie felt slightly better. And when she looked up, she saw Tom and an older man walking towards her. Tom came closer and introduced the man beside him. Mr. Walker, this is my eldest daughter, Natalie. Mr. Davidson, you are so lucky. Both of your daughters are beautiful. I'm envious. Natalie looked at her father's expression, which was now as calm as a spring breeze, and got a bad feeling in her stomach. She could tell that he was up to no good. Now that my youngest has found happiness, it's time to worry about her sister's future. He turned and nodded to Natalie. Natalie, talk to Mr. Walker, please. His fatherly expression made her feel nauseous. She finally understood why he had made her come back. Just then, a tall, powerful figure stepped into the hall and quickly became the focus of everyone's attention. But Natalie was still immersed in her own world and did not notice. Sorry, I don't think I have anything to talk about with Mr. Walker. I came to the party just like I said I would. If there's nothing else, then I'll be leaving. As she spoke, she put down the cup in her hand and got up to leave. Natalie, don't be angry. Daddy did this for your own good. All these years, he's been worrying about your future. Mr. Walker is the head of the Walker Group, and he is also a real estate tycoon. If you stay with him, you'll definitely live a life of luxury and ease. You make him sound like a catch. Why don't you marry him? What are you saying? I already have Nick. How could I marry anyone else? Natalie, how can you say that? Her stepmother, Rosemary, had come over and was frowning as well. Cheryl respects you so much, and you speak to her like this. Respect? You use words like that to deceive ignorant people, not me. Don't expect me to play along with it. Don't insult me. Mr. Walker, you don't know the whole story. Although I am the eldest daughter of this family, I've been exiled abroad for 5 years. I also have a child, and everyone in Seattle knows about it. If you marry me, you'll only be insulting yourself. Mr. Davidson, you didn't tell me she had a child. How could I possibly lie to you, Mr. Walker? Tom was so anxious that he wanted to explain, but the truth had already come out. Just as his scalp started to burn from worry, he suddenly heard a cold sneer behind him. When did the woman I've got my eye on become reduced to this? Everyone turned their attention to the person who had spoken. They saw a man walking over with steady steps. There was a playful smile on his face, and his eyes stared at Natalie like she was his prey.
Hi, I am Natalie. Want to know my story? Then download the Pocket FM app and listen to the exciting episodes of The Return Now.
When Natalie saw him, she was so shocked that her lips parted slightly and she didn't know what to say. His stature was tall and straight, and his entire body emitted an indescribable aura that filled those around him with awe. While everyone was whispering and trying to guess who he was, Mr. Walker's face changed dramatically. Mr. Clare, I never expected to meet you here. Tom couldn't believe his ears. So this was Bryce Clare, the man who had control of the city's economy and who could shake up financial circles with the snap of his fingers. He hadn't expected him to be so young. Liam, who had been standing in the corner, excitedly ran over to Bryce and hugged his calves.
Daddy, you're here!
He shouted. Daddy? Is he Bryce Clare's son? Tom felt like he had been struck by lightning when he heard this. She didn't know how to answer, so she just pursed her lips slightly and turned to look at Bryce. Bryce bent down without hesitation and hugged Liam. Then he caressed Natalie's face and laughed softly. Didn't you say we would come here together? How come you left without waiting for me? Her face flushed red as she tried to turn away. For a moment, she was unable to say a word. Tom could only stand there helpless. He was about to say something, but Bryce interrupted him. Holding the child in one hand and Natalie's shoulder in the other, he said, Let's go sit over there for a while. With that, he left Tom and took the other two with him. When they reached a quiet corner where nobody was paying attention to them, Natalie finally broke free from his arm. Why did you help me? Of course, I didn't want to help you. After a while, she reached for Liam and snatched him back. She pulled him away from Bryce and looked at him cautiously. Seeing her black eyes looking at the boy like she had to protect him, Bryce couldn't help but laugh. He leaned in again and whispered into her ear, Don't be nervous. People I want never get away. Just be good and wait for me here. After he said this, he turned and walked away, leaving her with the child in her arms and her heart beating erratically.
Mommy, where's Daddy going?
Natalie touched his head. She smiled helplessly and was about to remind him again that that wasn't his dad. But when she raised her head, she saw Cheryl walking slowly toward her. What are you doing here? Cheryl immediately played innocent and lightly tugged her arm. I don't need a reason. I was just afraid that my sister was bored, and so I came over to chat. Natalie, you don't know this, but I actually used to envy you. Seeing that Natalie wasn't paying attention to her, Cheryl pouted and continued sadly. Ever since I was young, Dad was always with you, while Mom and I lived in that rented apartment. I was really envious of you. I even wanted to snatch Dad and Nick away from you. But you know, big sis, Nick was really loyal to you. He only wanted to be with you, which is why I made you hurt me, so that I could get his attention, so that he would care for me. In the first year after you went abroad, he was in turmoil. But by helping him through the most difficult days of his life and letting him see my strengths, he slowly started to develop feelings for me. Have you finished? I'm not interested in listening to your emotional story, nor do I have time to watch you brag. He doesn't know about your past, does he? Cheryl had a face full of mischief. She tapped her chin with her finger and casually picked up a glass of wine from a server beside her. If he knew that you still had feelings for your little sister's fiancé, how would he react? She thrust the wine into Natalie's hands and pushed her away with a frown. Then she smirked and threw herself to the ground. With her hair in a mess around her head, she cried, Sister, you already have Bryce. Why are you still thinking about Nick? She purposely raised her voice to attract the attention of all the guests in the hall. Do you still blame me for getting together with him? But he caught you cheating. You broke his heart first. How can you still... She did not finish her sentence, but she had already said enough to put all the blame on Natalie. The surrounding guests looked at the stunned Natalie, who felt her head buzzing and her temples throbbing. Seeing Cheryl kneeling on the ground in a very sorry state, Nick squeezed through the crowd, pulled her into his arms, and roared fiercely, "Natalie, why are you like this?" Even Tom leaned towards her and reprimanded her. "How could I have a daughter with such a vicious heart?" The endless scolding made her head spin. Liam shouted at Cheryl, who was still on the ground, "You're lying!" Natalie felt unbearable pain in her chest. She tried her best to support herself, but her vision went dark again. Losing her balance, she fell backward. But instead of hitting the cold tiled floor, she fell into a warm embrace. Bryce caught her tightly in his arms and looked up at Cheryl with a cold gaze as she was helped to her feet. Seeing his stare, Cheryl panicked and started to act pitifully. "Mr. Clare, don't blame me. My sister grew up with Nick after all. Your sister had a bad taste in the past. But that's over now. With me here, why would she want any other man?" He did not react to Cheryl's stupefied expression. Instead, he picked up Liam with one arm and hugged the unconscious Natalie close to him.
Hi, I am Natalie. Want to know my story? Then download the Pocket FM app and listen to the exciting episodes of The Return now.
When Natalie woke up, she was no longer at the engagement party, and she was surrounded by snow-white walls. She had apparently been taken to a hospital. Liam. Tom was standing at the side of her bed. "What's your relationship with Bryce?" At that moment, Natalie felt nothing in her heart but disgust. In no mood to answer his question, she forced herself to sit up in bed. "Liam, hurry up and come in here," she called. "Stop shouting. He's not here. You haven't answered my question. What is your relationship with Bryce?" "What does it have to do with you? You go your way and I'll go mine." "All right, let's go our separate ways." Natalie lifted her hand and pushed away the quilting covering her body, barely able to support herself as she stood up. "I will. I'm leaving with Liam. Don't worry, we won't bother you again. I will give him back to you. I've heard that the Clare family is looking for a business partner. If you can persuade Bryce to partner with us, I will return your child to you." He spoke lightly, but his intention was clear. "Don't worry, I won't hurt the child, but you should use your time wisely." With that, Tom walked away, leaving Natalie alone in the ward. Thinking about whatever her father said made her head spin, as she had only met Bryce by accident, and asking him for help wouldn't come easy. But despite her worries, she did not hesitate. She quickly found his company's address on the website and went through her discharge procedures before rushing out of the hospital. When Natalie arrived at the Clare group, it was already afternoon. She took 2 steps toward the reception desk and said quickly, "Hello, I want to see Bryce Clare." "Sorry, I can't let you in without an appointment." She waited a full 3 hours, and only when it was close to evening did she finally see Bryce. He was too busy talking on his cell phone to notice her. He got into his car and prepared to leave. Natalie quickly got up and chased after him. As the car passed her, heading off down the road, she rushed out in front of it and blocked its path. The car almost hit her. Natalie stared at it with a pale face. The driver got out of the car and walked over to her angrily. "Are you crazy?" She was still a little frightened, but she forced a smile and apologized. I'm sorry. I didn't do it on purpose. She looked into the back of the car, but she couldn't see Bryce's face. So she turned back to the driver and said sincerely, "I want to talk to Bryce Clare." "You're looking for Mr. Clare?" "Yes. Would you mind telling him?" Natalie looked at him pleadingly. The driver was in a difficult situation, but when he thought of her reckless actions, his heart softened. "Wait a moment. Let me ask." Natalie immediately broke into a wide smile. Thank you. The driver glanced at her, then turned around and walked to the rear door. "What's going on?" The driver respectfully lowered his head. "This lady says she wants to talk to you." Bryce's eyelid twitched. He looked at Natalie, who was standing in front of the car with an indifferent gaze. He frowned slightly and lowered his head to look at his watch. "Tell her I'm busy." The window slowly rose. "Sorry, Mr. Clare is busy." The driver passed on Bryce's message and got back into the car. The sound of the car starting rang in her ears. Without thinking, she blocked it again, shouting to the man inside, "Mr. Clare, please give me 5 minutes. I'll leave right after, I promise." "I'll send her away." But just as he was about to open the door, a low voice came from behind him. "Let her in." Bryce narrowed his eyes at Natalie. He wanted to see what she was really up to. The driver was stunned, but he quickly got out of the car to tell her. Her heart skipped a beat as she lowered her head and quickly got into the car. The moment she got in, she started talking. "Mr. Clare, I need your help. My dad has taken Liam and is hiding him from me. I need your help to get him back." Bryce raised his eyebrows. He couldn't help but feel annoyed. "Why should I?" She choked, not knowing how to answer. Thinking of this, she clenched her fists and summoned the courage to plead. "Mr. Clare, I beg of you, please help me. If you help me, I'll give you anything." Bryce glanced at her and smiled sarcastically. "Anything? What do you have that I could possibly want? Or do you mean?" He moved closer to her, causing her to shrink back in fear. Instantly, Natalie's face turned red, and she bit harder on her lip without uttering a word. "Unfortunately for you, I have a lot of women." Natalie looked up, surprised. At that moment, she realized she had been in too much of a hurry to find him. Embarrassment welled up in her heart. Natalie smiled bitterly to herself. "Sorry to bother you." With that, she hurriedly opened the car door and got out. She felt dizzy. The sun was shining down on her, and now that she was outside, she couldn't help but frown. Bryce turned, and his calm gaze landed on her. Something flashed across his heart, but he ignored it, and instead looked away and ordered the driver to go. Natalie watched Bryce's car leave. Even though the sun was shining brightly, she could not suppress the chill that crept up slowly from the bottom of her heart. She hugged her arms and stood there, blank. After a while of this blankness, she took a cab and went to her house. She had only just returned home. She didn't have any friends. She was on her own. There was no one who would help her. But she narrowed her eyes and clenched her fists tightly. No matter what, she had to get Liam back.
Hi, I am Natalie. Want to know my story? Then download the Pocket FM app and listen to the exciting episodes of The Return Now.
Since Bryce wasn't willing to help, Natalie could only rely on herself. She made up her mind and returned to her family home, but did not go in through the main entrance. Instead, she snuck in through the backyard. If her father had him hidden in any corner of this place, she would find him, leave with him, and never return. But even though she looked all over, there was no sign of him. Through the gaps between the leaves, she saw Cheryl and Nick slowly walking toward her. "If you're tired, why don't we go and lie down?" "Dad told me to take care of that annoying kid. He's at the hotel by himself. If anything happens, it'll be trouble. But I don't really want to go." "I'll go with you." "Really?" He nodded. Natalie watched Cheryl and Nick's retreating backs. She followed them quietly. But when she reached the front door, she was stopped by the concierge. "Miss, please show me your membership card." "Membership card?" "Our hotel requires a membership card to enter." She sighed in frustration, stepped back, and looked up at the hotel. Meanwhile, in the restaurant on the second floor of the hotel, Bryce was eating with his parents. Robert and Michelle Clare had been living abroad for a long time. "Bryce, when are you going to get married?" "When it's time, of course." Hearing this, Michelle couldn't help but get angry. "You always talk back to your father and me. I think you wouldn't get married even if we died." "Mom, I will get married, but I can't just rush into it." Hearing that, she let out a heavy sigh and her tone became more gentle. "I know you've been very busy these past few years, but now that the company is growing so steadily, it's time for you to make a plan. Your dad and I are still waiting to hold our grandson." "Your mother is right. Now that the Clare family is in a stable position, you should relax. Find a girlfriend, get married." Bryce didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He shook his head. Then out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of a woman standing outside the hotel entrance downstairs. He hadn't expected her to follow him here. A wave of disgust rose in his heart. Downstairs, Natalie didn't know that she had been spotted by Bryce. She knew that Liam was inside, but she couldn't reach him. Just when she felt a loss for what to do, she saw an advertisement in the window next to her. The hotel was hiring waiters and waitresses. She tore down the advertisement, returned to the concierge, and showed it to him. "I'm not a member. I'm here to apply." She had managed to get into the hotel. "Are you sure you want to be a waitress?" The hotel manager looked at her from head to toe. His tone was filled with suspicion. "Yes, I do." Afraid that he would not believe her, she told him about her work experience abroad. "I was a waitress in a hotel while I was overseas. I've been through all sorts of hardships, but you can rest assured that I will not disappoint you." He couldn't help but feel a whole new level of respect for her, and he was also very satisfied with her experience. "All right, you can come to work tomorrow." Natalie almost cheered, but instead, she coughed lightly to cover her excitement and thanked him over and over again. "Work hard. There's a lot of room for promotion here." "Thank you. Can I look around the hotel today? I want to familiarize myself with the place first, so I can get to work faster when I come back tomorrow." When the manager heard her reasoning, he liked her even more. "All right, I'll find someone to show you around." He immediately called for a girl around Natalie's age. "Susan, this is our new waitress. Show her around and help her get familiar with the hotel." "Understood, sir." Natalie started thinking about ways to save her child. "Natalie, the people staying on the top floor of this hotel are rich and powerful. You can't afford to offend them, so you must be careful." "Yes, sir," Natalie and Susan answered in unison. Then they looked at each other and smiled. After giving his instructions, the manager told Susan to find a set of work clothes for Natalie. "The top floor of the hotel is the presidential suite, and the rest are business suites. The hotel is also equipped with swimming pools, bars, and other entertainment facilities." While Susan talked enthusiastically, Natalie seemed distracted. Seeing that she was a little preoccupied, Susan asked with concern, "Natalie, are you all right?" Natalie was startled for a moment before she shook her head with a smile. "It's nothing." "Then let's go upstairs and take a look." "Where's the surveillance room?" Susan stopped, turned around, and looked at her with a puzzled expression. "Why do you want to know?" I'm just asking. After all, it's the heart of the hotel. If there's an emergency or something, it would be useful to know where it is." "I see." She told her right away which floor the surveillance room was on and also how to get there. Natalie wrote it down and smiled brightly. "Thank you. You're very kind, explaining everything to me so clearly." Now she knew where the surveillance room was. She didn't want to continue with the tour of the hotel, so she found an excuse and went to the bathroom. By the time Bryce finished eating with his parents, it was already dark outside. The hotel kept a room for him all year round. He raised his hand, took off his tie, and threw it aside. Then he got up and walked into the bathroom. Natalie sneaked up to the floor where the surveillance room was, then followed Susan's instructions to find it. But she had not expected the hotel to be so big. There were several corridors, and it did not take long for her to get lost. Helpless, she could only search slowly and hope that she would find it. After searching for a long time, she walked past an elevator. She quickly turned around and pretended to be looking for something. Out of the corner of her eye, she noticed someone coming out of the elevator. When she saw who it was, her eyes widened. How could she have run into Cheryl and Nick? "Please don't let them see me," she thought to herself, and lowered her head even further.
Hi, I am Natalie. Want to know my story? Then download the Pocket FM app and listen to the exciting episodes of The Return now.
Out of the corner of her eye, she noticed someone coming out of the elevator. Thankfully, she was wearing the clothes of a hotel attendant, so Cheryl walked past her without even looking. She dashed to a nearby staircase and began to climb. It took almost no effort to reach the top floor, and she soon found a suspicious-looking room. There were two tall, black-clothed men standing at the door. At that moment, a waiter pushed a food trolley past her. She strode forward and snatched the trolley. "Let me do it." "But..." The waiter wanted to say more, but she cut him off. "It's okay, we're colleagues. We have to help each other out. You look tired. You probably haven't had a good rest in a while. Just take this opportunity to have a break, okay? Natalie pushed the trolley toward the room with the guards. It was very quiet inside. Natalie looked around, but she didn't see Liam. Suddenly, she heard the sound of water splashing, and she turned to look at the bathroom. The door was frosted glass, and she could vaguely see a tall figure on the other side. She was in the wrong room, and there was someone here. She turned around to leave, but in her hurry, she didn't pay attention to where she was going, and she bumped into the trolley. Bryce closed his eyes and let the warm water spray over his body. Suddenly, he heard the sound of something crashing to the floor. His eyes opened in shock, and he quickly turned off the shower. With a cold expression, he pulled a towel around his waist and strode out. You really don't know how to give up. Bryce looked down at her condescendingly. His black eyes were deep and frightening. Natalie tilted her head and gritted her teeth. Then she took a deep breath and faced him with a calm smile on her face. What a coincidence. Yes, what a coincidence. Natalie got up and stood straight. If I told you this was an accident, would you believe me? An accident? Do you really think I'd believe you? Natalie swallowed, her heart beating fast. He said this as he stepped closer to her. She backed away again. I'm not lying. This was an accident. I thought Liam was here. I came to find him. Bryce chuckled, and then immediately stopped. His expression turned sullen. Do you think I believe that? Sensing that he was getting angrier and angrier, Natalie realized the danger she was in and turned around to escape. But he was faster. He reached out his long arms, grabbed her waist, and pulled her closer to him. Let me go. She gave up, struggling, and glared at him. What are you trying to do? What? Are you trying to... Isn't that why you came here? As he spoke, a scorching hot breath gushed onto her neck, causing Natalie's body to stiffen. Terrified, Natalie shouted at him, I don't care what you think. Get off me! With these words, she ran away. Bryce sat up on the bed. His dark eyes were now frighteningly black. With this in mind, he got up, walked to the door, and opened it. The moment the bodyguards outside saw him, they lowered their heads respectfully. Mr. Clare, did you see the woman who just ran out? The bodyguards looked at each other and replied in unison, Yes, very good. Go and get her for me. Natalie ran out of the room and down the stairs. After taking a few deep breaths and calming herself down, she walked out of the stairwell. Suddenly, she bumped into Susan, who had been showing her around the hotel. Why were you in the bathroom so long? This hotel is so big, I got lost. I've been looking for a long time, but I couldn't find you. I'm really sorry. It's best if you don't wander around. If you offend an important guest, that would be bad, especially the guests in the presidential suite. Even the manager has to be careful when he sees them. The corner of Natalie's mouth twitched. Susan's advice had come too late. Let's go. I'll help you learn your way around the hotel so you won't get lost again. At this, Natalie came to her senses and responded with a small smile. At least she had managed to get a hint of where Liam might be held captive. She would do everything she could to get him back. Susan walked for a while and then realized that Natalie was not following her. Natalie, what are you doing? Natalie pulled herself from her thoughts and ran to catch up with her. Bryce's bodyguards quickly discovered Natalie's identity. Mr. Clare, that woman is a new employee at the hotel. At that moment, the sound of something falling came from the room next door, interrupting his thoughts. Bryce squinted in annoyance, then said in a deep voice, Go see what's going on. The bodyguards left hurriedly. He went to the next room and knocked loudly on the door. What's going on in your room? Can't you be quiet? You've already irritated the people next door, causing a ruckus. Sorry, it's a child making a fuss. Don't worry, I'll calm him down soon. Well, hurry up. With that, the bodyguard turned around and was about to leave when a childish voice came from inside the room. Let me out, you meanies! I hope my dad teaches you guys a lesson! The people next door were still being noisy, and Bryce was very impatient. So eventually, he came out personally to see what was going on. What's going on? A child is throwing a tantrum. Bryce knocked on the door, and when the man opened it again, he said, Who's in there? The man was caught off guard and retreated a few steps. Another man in the room immediately rushed over. Seeing that he was about to hit their boss, Bryce's bodyguards quickly went up to him and blocked his path. Why'd you do that? What do you want? Shouted the first man angrily. Bryce didn't even look at him as he walked into the room and scanned it with a cold gaze. Everything inside was smashed and scattered all over the floor. Liam jumped off the sofa and ran toward him. He grabbed Bryce's leg, raised his cute, innocent face, and looked at him with bright eyes.
Dad, you're here to save me, right?
Bryce looked at him. Unlike his mother, this child was rather pleasing to look at. He turned around and looked at the two men who were being blocked by his bodyguards, and his gaze darkened. So he bent over and picked the boy up. Liam, tell me, what's going on?
Hi, I am Natalie. Want to know my story? Then download the Pocket FM app and listen to the exciting episodes of The Return now.
My nasty auntie locked me up. She wouldn't let me see Mommy, and she told me to stay here. She also said that if I didn't listen, then these people would hurt me. But I wasn't scared, because I knew that my dad would come to save me.
Why did your aunt lock you up? Bryce asked.
When you left the hospital, Grandpa had my horrible auntie take me away and lock me up so that I couldn't see Mommy. Auntie said that as long as they had me locked up, Mommy would do what Grandpa said.
After Bryce heard this, he was a bit shocked. He also couldn't help but think about Natalie, who had barged into his room earlier. He looked down at Liam, who was in his arms. Bryce's heart softened, and a sigh escaped his lips as he held the child tightly and walked out of the room with big strides. Bryce carried the child into his room and put him down. Then he took out his cell phone and handed it to him. Call your mother and ask her to come pick you up.
Dad, you're not taking Mommy and me home?
Little guy, I'm not your dad, so you shouldn't call me that.
But you are.
Sorry, you are not my son, so stop calling me daddy. With that, he got up to leave. Liam quickly grabbed his shirt.
Daddy!
Listen carefully. I'm really not your father. Bryce was speechless. Seeing how pitifully Liam was crying, he started to feel bad. Don't cry. Stay with me tonight. Your mom will come to pick you up tomorrow.
Really?
Liam immediately stopped crying and looked at him in surprise. It's getting late. Let's go to sleep.
I haven't taken a bath yet. Daddy, can you give me a bath, please?
What?
Dad has never been around my whole life. Other kids' dads give them a bath. I envy them.
Bryce strode forward, scooped him up in his long arms, and held him. Fine, I'll give you a bath if you want me to. Liam immediately wiped away his disappointment and put on a happy expression.
Dad, you're so nice.
After taking a bath, Liam had no clothes to change into, so he put on Bryce's t-shirt. Liam laid down, but he couldn't fall asleep. What's wrong?
Dad, will you sleep with me?
Bryce clenched his fist and took a deep breath. Then he came down and laid down beside him. Sleep. Liam beamed. He snuggled close to him and closed his eyes. Natalie did not sleep at all the entire night. So when she came to the hotel the next day, there were dark circles under her eyes. Today she vowed that no matter what, she would sneak into that room and get him. When the hotel manager saw how early she had arrived, he had a whole new level of respect for her. The manager took her upstairs, and before he left, he reminded her, if you don't have anything to do in the corner room, don't go in there. If you upset that guest, we'll be ruined. Natalie nodded quickly, and she was about to go to the next room when the elevator dinged. Someone was coming. Natalie dodged around the corner, peeked out, and saw Cheryl walking toward the door of the room she had been about to enter. While she was thinking of a plan, two burly men walked out of the room. Where's the child? How has he disappeared? The two bodyguards shivered as they recalled the cold eyes of the man from last night, so they made up a story. The brat smashed everything in the room, and while we were tidying up, he took advantage of the chaos to escape. Useless! If you can't even take care of a child, what's the point of having you? After hearing that Liam had been lost, Natalie moved without thinking. What? You said that Liam has disappeared? I'm going to call the police. She took out her cell phone and started to dial the police. A trace of panic flashed across Cheryl's face when she saw Natalie dialing 911. At her command, the two bodyguards held Natalie down, snatched her phone, and ended the call. Cheryl, give me my phone back.
Sis, don't worry. How far can a child go? He'll be back soon, don't you think?
Cheryl, I'm going to find Liam. If you keep doing this, you will be punished. Cheryl suddenly felt a great sense of satisfaction. She walked slowly over to her with a twisted look of glee in her eyes. Although the child is lost, why are you still here? Isn't it Bryce's responsibility to find out his whereabouts? If he really is your son's father and you are his child's mother, he would have rescued your Liam way earlier. Cheryl waved her hand to signal her subordinates to take Natalie away. Let me go! It wouldn't be good for you if Bryce finds this out. Natalie knew she had no business with Bryce. Telling the truth to Cheryl would only risk her son's life. Finally, struggling and whining frantically, Natalie was taken away. Bryce didn't sleep well.
Dad, why hasn't Mom called me back?
He pouted and looked at Bryce with an aggrieved expression. Bryce was also a bit confused. He immediately called for his men. Go out and find where the woman is. Not long after, they returned with pictures on their phone. We found out from a surveillance camera that Miss Davidson was taken away by these people. This is Miss Davidson's sister. Bryce squinted his eyes dangerously. When Liam saw the picture, he cried. Bryce looked helplessly at him. Even the bodyguards, who were standing to one side, were surprised when they saw their boss soften.
Daddy, Mommy's been taken away by those bad guys. They will definitely bully her. Go and save Mommy, please.
Liam was tired from crying. He raised his head and looked at the man in front of him, begging him with his eyes.
Hi, I am Natalie. Want to know my story? Then download the Pocket FM app and listen to the exciting episodes of The Return Now.
Natalie's head was covered by a cloth, which shrouded her in darkness. She used all her strength to kick at the door with her unbound feet, but it didn't budge an inch. After struggling for a long time, there was finally some movement at the door, and a few big men who looked like bodyguards opened it and pulled off her hood. She found that she was in Davidson Mansion. Struggling is useless. You won't be able to run away. I think you should just wait for Bryce to come and save you. You two are together, after all. If he really likes you, he won't ignore you, right? Cheryl's eyes flashed with jealousy. Natalie frowned as she thought about how she had angered Bryce yesterday. Noticing the subtle change in her expression, Cheryl's eyebrows lifted, and she snorted with a malicious smile. What's wrong with you? Wait, were you acting all this time? Were you lying when you said you were with Bryce? Were you lying to us? Huh? Of course it's true. He might be trying to find me. And when he does, you won't be able to take the consequences. All right, sister. We'll wait and see. As she finished speaking, she waved behind her, and two burly men appeared again and started dragging Natalie inside the Davidson house. While Cheryl was walking away, Tom walked over. He didn't even look at Natalie, but instead asked Cheryl what's going on. She lowered her head and told him the whole story without hiding anything. Tom nodded. He didn't have much of an expression, but it was obvious that he was worried as he instructed the bodyguards, "Watch her carefully. Don't make any more mistakes." Natalie looked at her family's faces and felt disheartened. Natalie was filled with hatred, and she wanted to get out of the place as soon as possible. Liam is lost, but you guys only care about yourselves. If anything happens to him, even if I die, I'll take you all to hell with me. Natalie roared in despair, but it didn't shake her family's cold hearts. Go ahead and do whatever you want. You won't be able to leave until Bryce agrees to be my business partner. Outside, Cheryl's mother came over when she heard the commotion. Tom, don't be angry. I see that this girl is so much trouble that Bryce hasn't even bothered to come for her yet. They probably don't have a relationship at all, and she lied to us. Yeah, Dad. How could a man like Bryce be with her anyway? I think we got it wrong. Hearing that, Tom's expression turned sour again, and Cheryl felt secretly happy. While this was going on in the Davidson household, the news was out that the CEO of the Claire Group, Bryce, had been at a hotel with a child. The rumors spread almost overnight and shocked everyone. When Bryce's parents heard the news, they treated it just as any other rumor. The butler showed them the picture he had secretly taken at the hotel the night before. It was a picture of a little boy pulling at Bryce and looking cute, and the child in the photo looked just like Bryce when he was young. Bryce heard the rumors but paid no attention. But when he tried to leave Liam at the hotel to be taken care of, the boy immediately broke down. Tears flowed down his face as he pulled on Bryce's sleeve and refused to let him go.
Dad, don't leave me behind. Mom hasn't come back yet. I don't want to be alone. I want to go where you go, please.
So he had no choice but to bring the boy with him. Bryce was at work. He looked at Liam, who was eating with relish on the couch, and put his head in his hands. An abrupt knock on the door broke Bryce's train of thought. Son, tell us what has happened. Michelle was an impatient person. She showed Bryce the photo right away, too distracted to notice that Liam was sitting on the sofa. Why are you guys here? How could we not come? You have a child? What's going on? Where is he now? Bryce peeked at the couch behind Michelle. It was only then that his parents noticed Liam, who was sitting there eating cake. Noticing that people were staring at him, the little fellow stared back. He felt like these old people were very kind and he greeted them. Hearing this childish greeting, Bryce's parents' hearts trembled for an instant. They immediately walked over to Liam. Little guy, what's your name? Liam blinked his big eyes and answered,
My name is Liam.
Bryce's parents looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. Michelle moved closer to Liam and hugged him. Liam, tell Grandma who your mother is. These questions caught Liam off guard. Just as he was about to reply, Bryce walked over. Seeing him, Liam was very happy. He forgot to answer and instantly called out sweetly,
Dad!
When Michelle heard this, she could not sit still any longer. Tell us what happened. The child is calling you Dad. Who is his mother? Did you leave her after she got pregnant? Has she come looking for you yet? Michelle had already accepted Liam as her grandson, but she had felt very close to him the moment she saw him. Veins popped out on Bryce's forehead. Suddenly, the image of Natalie's face appeared in his mind, and he became extremely agitated. Liam is not really my son. He just calls me Dad. His mother never denied it and misled him. But despite his explanation, his parents did not believe him. Robert looked at his son reproachfully. Bryce once again felt frustrated. Suddenly, something flashed through his mind. He didn't know the woman from the night 5 years ago when he had been set up. Bryce looked at Liam, who was still in Michelle's arms. It's been 5 years since that incident took place, and this little guy looked like he was nearly 5 years old.
Hi, I am Natalie. Want to know my story? Then download the Pocket FM app and listen to the exciting episodes of The Return Now.
Bryce's heart skipped a beat. Liam, tell me, how old are you this year? At that moment, he saw how surprisingly alike they looked.
I'm 4 years old.
Bryce's eyes flashed. When were you born? Which year and which month? Liam had never seen his dad this nervous.
I was born on November 5th.
The light in Bryce's eyes dimmed. He vaguely remembered that he and that woman had been together in March of that year, and Liam had been born in November. This is not my child, I'm sure. But he didn't know that Natalie had given birth prematurely due to her poor health abroad. Then what should we do now? How did this child find you? Michelle couldn't help but worry and wonder whether Liam had been used somehow. This matter is a little complicated. You don't have to worry about it. Just thinking about Natalie gave him a headache. Liam looked at Bryce and his parents and explained,
Mom was taken away by bad people. Dad said he would bring Mom back, so I'll wait here for her.
Bryce, if this isn't your child, why does he call you Dad all the time? Bryce let out a long sigh. Liam is from a single-parent family. His mother takes care of him alone. Maybe because he thinks that I look like his father, he couldn't help but call me Dad. Michelle looked at Liam, who was still sitting on the couch with a pained expression. Then what are you going to do? I promised that I would save his mother. then we will never have anything to do with each other again. She thought for a while and said, "How about this? It's not convenient for Liam to be with you all the time. Right now, you have work to do. We will look after him. And when you get his mom back, then you can return him to her." Bryce nodded. For some reason, he suddenly felt reluctant to let him go. "Liam, you have to go with my parents right now, as I have things to take care of. I'll find your mother. Will you wait for her to come and pick you up?" Liam nodded. After they left, the huge office finally fell quiet, and Bryce's headache returned as he thought about how to save that woman. Suddenly, he wondered why he cared so much about her, so he went straight to the city on a business trip. For those 2 days, Natalie was trapped in the Davidson family home. Her heart burned with anxiety.
Natalie, are you still not going to contact Bryce? Even if you can wait, can Liam? He's probably starving to death right now.
She looked at Cheryl furiously. "If anything happens to him, I'll bury the entire family, starting with you. I hate you. I hate all of you." Hearing Natalie's screams, Tom walked over with a frown. "You ungrateful child. You should call Bryce right now, or else you'll never walk out of this place." Natalie's entire body went cold. "Bryce and I are not connected to each other in any way. We have no relationship at all. You can't imprison me forever. Just let me go." Cheryl snickered. The ridicule was obvious in her eyes. "Like I said, why would someone like Bryce fall for you? The reason he said those things at the party was because he thought you were pitiful." The truth about her and Bryce had left Tom fuming. "It's better if the child dies, or else he will only embarrass me. As for you, you will marry Mr. Wilson. You will enjoy endless wealth and prosperity. You can thank me later." Natalie sneered. Her entire body trembled with anger. "I won't marry anyone. You greedy devils! Let me out!" She was furious. Tom frowned and glanced impatiently at Natalie before turning around to leave. She panicked and screamed with all her might, "Let me out! Let me out!" He paused. Without even looking at her, he continued, "I've already arranged with Mr. Wilson that he will meet with you tomorrow. If you know what's good for you, you won't do anything stupid." As they left, the despair in Natalie's eyes grew even more intense. When she thought about Liam's cute, innocent face, she couldn't stop crying. It wasn't until the afternoon of the next day that someone came to the room. 2 burly men walked in and pulled Natalie up from the ground. She was brought to the dining table. Mr. Wilson stared at her without blinking. "Mr. Davidson, you sure are fortunate. Your 2 daughters are so beautiful." She turned her face away in disgust. Tom glared fiercely at her. He smiled apologetically at Mr. Wilson. "You are too kind. My eldest daughter is just a savage little girl. She's lucky that you like her." Mr. Wilson was very satisfied with these words, and he ignored the clear dislike in Natalie's eyes. Tom gave Natalie a meaningful glance and said, "What are you sitting there for? Why don't you drink a glass of wine with Mr. Wilson?" The waiter tactfully poured a glass of wine for her, but she just sat there and watched, unmoved. "Mr. Davidson, I think your daughter is unwilling." Tom's face darkened for a moment as he silently cursed this daughter of his for spoiling his plans. "My daughter has just returned from overseas and is still not familiar with the etiquette here. Please don't mind her. We will be family soon. Let me drink this wine to show my respect." Mr. Wilson's expression lightened. He nonchalantly brought the glass of wine to his lips for a sip and looked at Natalie. At the other end of the table, Bryce was chatting with a friend when he spotted Natalie, so she was also here. What a coincidence. He wouldn't have to look for her.
Hi, I am Natalie. Want to know my story? Then download the Pocket FM app and listen to the exciting episodes of The Return Now.
Bryce had been silently observing Natalie. At that moment, a waiter came to deliver some dishes. Natalie saw an opportunity and immediately got up and knocked over the table. The dishes scattered all over the place with a loud crash, and everything immediately descended into chaos. so she grabbed hold of the waiter and asked anxiously, "How do I get to the back door?" She sprinted away. There were no guards at the back door, but she didn't dare to slow down until she reached the road. A Cadillac suddenly stopped in front of her, blocking her way. The car window slowly rolled down, revealing Bryce's grave expression. Knowing that her father and his men would catch up to them soon, she opened the car door and got in. It wasn't until they were completely out of sight that she managed to breathe again. "Thank you. I will, get out just up here. I don't want to trouble you too much." Now that she had finally escaped, the most important thing was to find Liam. "You're hurt," he said, and instructed the driver, "Go to the hospital." "You don't have to take me to the hospital. Take me to the hotel if you don't mind. I'm going to find Liam." When she mentioned Liam, she finally lost control of her emotions, and her eyes reddened slightly. Conflicted, he turned his gaze away to hide his emotions and ignored what she had said. "Driver, hurry up and go to the hospital." "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm not going to the hospital. I want to go back to the hotel. My son is lost. He disappeared 2 days ago." Bryce lowered his face cautiously toward her and kissed her lips. Her mind was blank. She could not react. He quickly came to his senses. Pulling away from her, he said, "Finally, you're quiet." Natalie's face turned red once again. Why had he kissed her? She asked him. Bryce raised his eyebrows. He still didn't show any emotion as he said indifferently, "It was just a way to shut you up. You're too loud. It was annoying." The car soon arrived at the hospital. Natalie went straight inside to get her hands bandaged. When she was finally able to leave, she was surprised to see that the conspicuous car was still there. "Why haven't you left? Is there something else?" "Get in the car." She pursed her lips, not saying anything. Remembering that inexplicable kiss, she felt wary of him. And after a moment of consideration, she said, "Thank you for your help, but I still have things to do, so I'll be leaving." "Did I say you could leave?" She suddenly felt annoyed. She angrily took out $100 and handed it to him. "I know what you want, but I'm really in a hurry. Can I just pay you the fare?" "I was going to take you to your son, but it seems like you don't want to go. So let's forget it." "Driver." He didn't even look at her as he drove away. She chased after the car and shouted, "Hey, wait! What do you mean? Tell me!" In the car, Bryce looked in the rearview mirror and saw how pitiful she looked chasing after them. The car kept going for a while longer, and soon Natalie was no longer able to run. The car backed up and the window slowly rolled down, revealing Bryce's arrogant smile. "Why aren't you running? Is that all you've got?" Natalie glared at him. "What are you still sitting there for? Did running make you stupid? Get in the car." She didn't dare to argue with him. She quickly got into the car and asked, "Do you know where Liam is?" He nodded and replied with a faint, "Mm-hmm." "Where is he? Tell me, quickly. I've been dying of worry for the past few days." "You'll find out when we get there." Natalie finally felt relieved. Not long after, the driver arrived at one of the most famous homes in Seattle, the Clare family mansion. She was confused when she got out of the car. "Is this your home? What did you bring me here for?" He did not answer. She did not seem to be attracted to him, like other women, and this surprised him. He walked straight to the front door of the mansion, and Natalie had no choice but to follow. "Mr. Clare, welcome home." He looked around and asked the butler, "Walter, where is my mom?" "In the back garden, sir." Bryce nodded and did not linger. Instead, he took Natalie to the garden. As soon as they arrived in the back garden, Natalie saw a little boy squatting among the flowers, playing happily. "Liam!" When he saw her, he dropped the flower in his hand and ran into her arms.
"Mommy, I missed you,"
he cried, pushing himself into Natalie's embrace to comfort her.
"I knew Daddy would save you."
"How have you been? Are you hurt?"
"I'm not hurt. Grandma has been looking after me. Don't worry, Mommy."
"Grandma?" She was puzzled. Only then did she see a woman wearing an expensive-looking dress sitting in a nearby summer house. She was sipping tea and watching them. Natalie was surprised. She was confused, but she still had to be polite. Pulling Liam up, she walked toward the lady. "Are you Bryce's mother? I hope it hasn't been too much trouble to take care of Liam." "No, I find him cute. It's not a problem. Thank you for taking care of him." Her face eased a bit as she said, "It's nothing." I like him a lot. I heard that something happened to you. It's good that you came back. She picked Liam up and prepared to leave. Thank you again. I'll take him now. Liam blinked, looked at his mother, and then looked at his grandma. Michelle looked at the boy and suddenly felt reluctant. Are you really in such a hurry to leave? Do you have a place to stay? I came here because I had some things to deal with. Now that I've found Liam, I plan to go back to England tomorrow. With that, she looked at the distant sky and, lost in thought, muttered, I won't come back again.
Hi, I am Natalie. Want to know my story? Then download the Pocket FM app and listen to the exciting episodes of The Return Now.